So, let's say that I'm sat in a cafe and I overhear the people on the table next to me talking, and I hear one of them say, that Peter, I'm gonna murder him. What should I do? Should I call the police? Because it seems like this guy is gonna murder someone called Peter. Or maybe, perhaps, Peter is just someone who's done something silly and this guy is just annoyed with him. Well, it's a pretty big decision because I could be saving someone's life or I could be overreacting. So what do I do? Well, in order to understand what people mean when they say stuff, we need to look at a bit more than what they say. We need to look at something called their context. But what is this thing called context? Well, context is anything that surrounds a thing. Now, this thing could be something that someone has said, it could be something that someone has done, their actions, or it could be something that someone has written. So context is anything surrounding that thing that helps us understand what this thing is. So let's say this thing was from a different part of the world. Thinking about which part of the world it came from could help us understand. Or let's say it's something that was written years and years ago at a different time. Thinking about the time that it was written can help us understand that thing. And literally anything immediately around the thing can help us to understand it. That's what context is. So, shall we see how that works with our coffee shop situation? So, in our coffee shop situation, the thing I want to try and understand is whether this guy is planning on murdering Peter. What did he do? So let's look at the context around it. So just before, these guys were having a conversation about toilet paper. Odd, but fair enough. Specifically about how there was none left because a man called Peter used the last roll. Okay, so suddenly I understand this a bit more, but isn't saying you'll murder someone going a bit far? Well, let's look at a bit more context. What is going on in the world around this situation? It's the coronavirus outbreak at the moment, which means there's a general shortage of toilet paper. So suddenly we can understand this a bit more, but is this man still trying to kill Peter? Well, a really good bit of context is that he had a smile on his face when he did it, almost so he said it jokingly, which suggests to me that I shouldn't call the police. So that's how our context helps us understand that thing. But why am I talking about context in the first place? Well, the reason I'm talking about context is because it's one of the most important things that comes into play when reading this, the Bible. You see, Bible literally means books, and there's 66 different books within this book that span over at least 4,000 years. There's more than 44 authors in here. There's different types of literature. So there's history in here, there's poetry in here. There's even letters that people write to each other. So if I want to know what's going on in here, I'm going to have to understand the context. So how do we understand the context of the Bible when reading it then? Well, I thought I'd give a few practical tips because, like I said, it's important. Context is so important to understand something that maybe we don't understand. And so the first tip I'd give you is to put on your contextual glasses. And what I mean by that, I know it seems silly, but it's literally to almost see through the eyes of the author. Maybe have a think of which part of the world they were in. Which part of the world was this written in? And what does that tell us about the text? And also, what about the time as well? Because that could massively change what a text means. Is this written for us or is it written for someone else? I mean, that comes in as well. What type of writing is it? Is it maybe like a history book? Or is it like a letter that someone's sending to a friend? It might even be, like I mentioned before, poetry. And so these are all important things to think of when trying to understand the context of what we're reading. It's also important to ask the question, where does this fit into the entire story of the Bible? Although there's 66 books, there's one overall narrative which points forward to Jesus. And I mean, that might sound like a lot, but the best thing is that even though it does sound like quite a lot, we don't have to figure out all of this stuff ourselves because other people have done it for us. I mean, even in my hand, this is a study Bible. What there is on every single page, there's different study notes which help me to understand the context. There's amazing online resources too, like the Bible Project. They're a YouTube channel, and what they do is they draw out different books of the Bible and explain it as they go along. It's super helpful, especially if you're a visual learner like me. And also, don't be afraid to ask other Christians. We're your leaders. Actually, we're here to help, and we want to help you understand, because actually context is everything. I mean, if you take something out of context, you're probably actually just going to miss the meaning in the first place. I mean, as someone else has said, when you take a text out of context, all you have left is a con. See you next time.